Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Spincast. Today, we're diving back into the great world of high school esports. Joining me today is JON ALFRED. He's the esports coach and a history teacher at Willow Canyon High School in Arizona. So, without further ado, JON, go ahead. Give me your background. What kind of spurred those passions in esports and gaming to become the esports coach and really lead this fantastic program that you have going at Willow Canyon High?
So I've been a gamer my entire life. I'm an older guy. I've been playing since my old Atari days back in the early 80s. And so I love gaming, always have been, much to the detriment of my wife. She sometimes tells me to get off World of Warcraft. But I didn't really have much chance for esports. I'm an athletics coach. I coach football, basketball, baseball, softball, all the traditional sports. But I had recently taken a break from that. I was just focusing on my teaching. And my athletic director came up to me last year and he said, "Hey, we're doing an esports program. You're the coach." I was like, "Whoa, wait a minute. Like, when does the season start? And like, with what computers are we doing this?" And he goes, "Oh, season starts in 2 weeks. And we're going to use these computers over here in the library." I'm like, "No, those are like 12-year-old computers. Those are not going to fly." Yeah. And so in Arizona, we run a 2-season year. So there's a fall season, spring season, and fall was the premier season for the state of Arizona. And so what I did during the fall season was really dive into what is esports, what it's all about, what do we need, and set up my program for success. And that involved getting gaming computers in, finding a space, finding a crew of kids. And we finally got all up and running about 2 weeks before spring. And then we joined the spring season and everything was super awesome. Everything was going great. At one point, I think we were ranked second in state for Rocket League. We were a top 15 team for League of Legends. And then COVID, which shut down the season. And Play Versus was lucky, and Play Versus manages the high school esports scene. They were lucky enough to let us scrimmage over the rest of the spring. So we had scrimmages throughout. So it kept some of our skills kind of sharp. And now that we're back, we were in a hybrid model at Willow Canyon, but now we're all back and we're getting ready for our fall season here in a week and a half.
Awesome. Super exciting. Kind of thrown into the battle, so to say. But that's awesome that, you've already seen that success, and just unfortunate that COVID decided to shut everything down in the entire world. But I can't wait till COVID's gone and we can get all the lands back and all these great competitions that sadly we can't partake in right now because of the pandemic. Kind of jumping into more of your program specifics, take me through a snapshot of your program. What games do you compete in? What teams do you have? What competitions? Obviously, you mentioned Play Versus, but take me through that snapshot of what that the competitive kind of structure looks like.
So for the state of Arizona for high school, currently they only allow 2 games, League of Legends and Rocket League. While Play Versus last year also offered Smite, and then late in the spring season they offered Fortnite, the state of Arizona only allows those 2. So why we would love to have other games, and when we visit colleges and other programs, they are playing those are site specific. And I have yet to convince my district that Overwatch and Fortnite and Smite are okay for us to play at like a recreational level. Mm-hmm. But so we have a League of Legends team. We currently have 1, though I did recently get 2 freshmen wanting to come in and play. So my team is full. So what we're focusing on with them is training. I have a couple seniors, so those new kids who don't know that much about the game, they're going to focus on those roles that they'll be replacing. And then Rocket League, in the spring I was running 3 teams, but I'm down to 2 right now because a lot of students are taking a break and they're not quite sure. And with us just barely coming back in the last couple weeks, they're not quite sure. So I have 2 teams. I have a varsity level team and a rec team, or the JV equivalent. And, I'm kind of excited because one of the things that was difficult for me is I had never played League of Legends and I had never played Rocket League. Now I had done MOBAs. I had played Dota 2 for years, but then gave it a break. So I understood the concepts, and Rocket League's very much like soccer. So, it was easy to understand the concepts. So diving in the spring and trying to figure it out, one of the things I really learned to focus on, something that the pros do and the college teams do, is instead of trying to train for every position, I'm training my players for one position. So we're getting hyper focused as opposed to can you fill everything? And so we get a really good top lane or a really good jungle, a really good mid, etc. Same thing with our Rocket League team. Like, we're focusing on positional play as opposed to all around kind of flex.
Sure, absolutely. Especially at like the entry level, I feel like, trying to learn the entire composition of the team is very difficult until you have a good basis in one of the areas, right? That's more comfortable that you can always kind of go back to. I know. I mean, I played Rainbow Six Siege competitively, and if I sat down, like, okay, let's learn all 50 characters right now, I'd be like, oh, that's a little daunting. So totally on the same page there. Take me through what practice looks like. You said in your little bio that I read that you were top 10 in League of Legends and second in Rocket League in the state before COVID kind of shut everything down. Take me through, what that practice looks like where, you built up these skills to be as successful as you were before everything was put on pause.
So one of the big things I focus on in practice is communication, because gamers are used to playing, and yes, we've been playing multiplayer games for years, but really gaming is a solo activity.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at traditional sports, which we're trying to emulate in esports, players are used to giving up of themselves to make the team better. Where gaming, when you're at home, it's all about you. What is my kill score? What's my damage score? What's my DPS score? What's my control score? Whatever it is, depending upon the game. And so what I look for in practice is what teammates can communicate with each other, right? How can they build each other up when you get on your back foot, right? Because that always happens in a game, right? All of a sudden there's a spectacular play and you're sitting there going like, I don't even know what happened. And all of a sudden you think you suck. And then it just kind of snowballs into negativity. So I'm looking for teammates that can talk to each other, talk each other through things, making sure that, that map awareness is so important for both games that we play. But a lot of players, especially teenagers, they get hyper-focused and they get that tunnel vision. So that communication helps you kind of escape that tunnel vision. So we work on communication. And then we look at basics. So for League of Legends, we focus on CS score and vision score and map awareness, as opposed to, do you have this full rotation down yet?
Mm-hmm.
For some of my higher players who are gold, diamond, or gold, platinum, diamond, yeah, we go into a lot more detail things. But for most of my players at this level, they're still learning the game. So we focus on the basics first, and we just hammer those in constantly until they become habit. Same thing with Rocket League. Are you aware of the field? I think the field awareness is absolutely critical to be successful in that game. And so making sure you understand where you are and where everybody else is at the same time is ultimately what makes you successful. And it's such a basic thing, and I think a lot of people forget. They want to work on their aerials, or they want to work on their ceiling dribbles and everything else. And I'm like, you don't even know where the ball is. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Focus on the ball, and then we'll get you there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so important. That awareness, especially in Rocket League, is so important, but it is important in everything, right? That communication level, so you can, your teammates are communicating. Hey, I'm over here. I'm going to, attack this ball, or I'm going to rotate to this lane, and have that awareness to track that mentally, and then be able to do it for your enemy. Obviously, they're not telling you what they're doing. That's really, really key, and it's a lot harder than people think it is, to say the least. Kind of diving into the competitive side of it, take me through what your competitive matches looked like with Play Versus. What was a match day like? Was there any things that you changed in preparation? What is that? What did you like about it? What did you not like about it? Go on.
So Rocket League, there's not that much prep, because the games are so short, and because it's a best of 5 series, and it doesn't really matter like how well the opponent plays. There's not a lot of scouting that you would do like in traditional sports. So Rocket League is, are you prepped? Are you mentally there? Are you ready? And then, hey, have we scouted out and seen if this other school has a Twitch or a YouTube out, and we can see some of their gameplay, right?
Sure.
And so for Rocket League, it's that internal mental game. But for League of Legends, that draft pick and the scouting report is just as important as the game. So usually we get about 2 days worth of notice scouting the opponents and trying to figure out, and going to like op.gg or using the Play Versus site, which has recently got some stats, which has been super useful. So looking at them like, hey, what do they play? Who are we going to ban? Are we going to try to power ban some of their low-level players to really get them off and just kind of deal with their big guy? Or are we going to power ban their gold 1, but everybody else is bronze or unranked? And so dealing with that kind of strategy and mental game has really kind of made my kids realize that this isn't a game. This is a sport. And that mental game is so important. Like when I was playing football in high school and college and baseball, we spent more time looking at film than we actually spent on the field. And now we're starting to do the same thing with League of Legends. We're going out, we're trying to find their streams. We're trying to find people who play against them. We look at, hey, if these players are playing together, you know, he's their top player, but all he's playing is ADC. So what should we expect? Is this going to be they're going to change him to the ADC? So you can't just say, hey, you know, he played Darius twice, so we're going to ban Darius, but normally he's playing like an Asher and MF.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's who we should be focusing on. And so that mental preparation, getting ready for that game, so critical for success. And I think that led to a lot of our success. And we even went in the Play versus Summer Showdown, and we ended up in the Elite Eight in that national championship,
Awesome.
losing to a very good team that went all the way to the national championships. But I think it has to do with our scouting and our pre-game prep more than our gameplay itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's such a thing that's overlooked at the younger ages, right? Obviously the pros, they put in all that prep work, but you got to start that basis somewhere. I think over time it'll even grow and grow, where you're going to see a lot of this, you know, kind of spying, so to say, going in, finding these Twitch streams, finding these YouTubes, and really focusing on how do we counter what they're giving us, and or even at its core, what are they going to give us? You know, what operators are they going to bring, what heroes are going to bring, and so on and so forth. But an interesting thing that I wanted to talk a little bit more about was you being a super coach for Play Versus. Tell me a little bit more about that, because I know that's a little bit of an exclusive thing. I was just wondering, you know, like how you got super coach and kind of what that allows you to provide for your students to keep them going.
I became a super coach, I think the same way I became a coach. It was just kind of thrust on me.
Yeah.
So, you know, I had somebody from Play Versus reach out and they're like, hey, you know, we have this position, super coach, where you're going out and you're helping other programs and helping them get them established because this is all new. And I'm like, okay, sure. What do I have to do? And they're like, just reach out to other programs. And then they send me this 8-page contract. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. But that super coach is really useful because what it does is it creates excitement. Because I'm reaching out to other schools and saying, hey, look, this is what we've done. It's not just about kids playing video games. It's about creating engagement with your student body where you normally wouldn't have that kind of engagement, because esports players are not the normal kids that get involved in high school, right? Mm-hmm. In college, maybe they show up and they're like, oh, yeah, this is kind of cool. But in high school, they tend to be the shy kid, the kind of introvert. But you bring them in here and all of a sudden, hey, I'm representing this school. You know, you can kind of see behind my shoulder here, we have one of our jerseys up on the board. And now all of a sudden they're wearing that jersey on game day, the same way football players and baseball players and the cheer squad is. And they're like, and people look at them like, hey, that's kind of cool. Yeah. And so creating that student engagement is exciting for a lot of schools, not just Willow Canyon, but others, you know. Yeah. And then talking about, hey, esports isn't just playing video games. There's careers in esports. There's college scholarships. In fact, I got one of my athletes last year, he got a scholarship to Grand Canyon University. And so just seeing that alone changes a lot of people's perceptions.
Yeah, absolutely. Take me through that experience of, you know, really kind of maybe facilitating or helping him to get that scholarship, because that's something that's incredibly kind of rare right now. Obviously not a ton of esports scholarships, but take me through that process and kind of what that experience entailed.
So I was honestly surprised myself because, you know, I'm sitting in here in shock too. You know, I'm like, really playing video games? You know, when I was a kid, it was like, what are you going to do with that in the rest of your life? Mm-hmm. But what I did is I reached out to Arizona State University, GCU, Ottawa University, which is a private college. They started building a program over the spring. So they had us come out and we said, hey, can we take a tour? Can we talk to your programs and see what kind of futures are here? Because in my head, and this is my experience in sports, most players cap out in their high school season, whether they're football, baseball, right? And the pool gets smaller and smaller when you go from junior high to high school to college, college to pros, and it gets smaller and smaller. So I wanted to look at those programs that weren't just, hey, come over here and play League of Legends. It's what kind of career can I build? And that was my initial, hey, let's do this. Let's have that visit. Sure. And when we show up, we're talking about that. And I started talking to the team captains while my kids are running around those college level esports arenas, you know, with all the flashy lights and RGBs and, you know, everything looks cool. And they're like, ooh, shiny. And so I'm sitting there talking, I'm like, hey, you want to scrimmage some of my teams?
Yeah.
You know, I'd love to have this experience. In my head, I'm like, we're going to get beat so bad. Mm-hmm, sure. And so they're like, yeah, that'd be fun. So we set it all up and we come back to high school and we're sitting here and I'm like, hey kids, you want to scrimmage against college? And they're like, sure. So we start scrimmaging and we start winning. not all the time. And most of the time, like if at first I think the college athletes are like, yeah, it's high school, whatever. And they're not taking it serious. And all of a sudden they're getting beat and they're like, oh, no, roll us in the later games. But that first game we tend to win. And that gave those players some respect. And all of a sudden the captains are reaching out to that player like, hey, I know you're a senior. Have you thought about Grand Canyon University? Have you thought about ASU? Have you thought about Ottawa?
Sure.
Right. And then it's just part of that process. And they're not, and I will say that, like you said, e-scholarships are rare. And so it was a very creative, what's the word I'm looking for? Creative use of funds by the college themselves, right? It's not a traditional D1 athletic scholarship, but he's getting college paid for, which is something because college is expensive.
Yeah, and that's so special is that, you know, I think one of the greatest things, especially for any student, is being able to take their passions to the next level, especially for free, right? That's just like a bunch of added icing on top. But being able to continue to pursue your passions and understand that it exists at that next level is so awesome. And it's an opportunity that I wish more students were able to take advantage of. And I'm sure they will be over time as, you know, there's a bunch more high school programs, outside programs, collegiate programs, et cetera, et cetera.
Well,
that's incredible to hear.
Well, one thing that to kind of tack onto that, my principal's been so impressed with what we build. He's actually giving me an esports class next year.
Awesome. As part
and
of
it's going to, yeah, as part of the curriculum. So I've been working with Kansas State University and Dell, and they have various curriculums. Dell's curriculum is a semester-long pre-built. It's called the Business of Esports. So it's not about gaming. It's about, you know, all those things behind the scenes that make the college and the pro scene so important. So the video producers, the content creators, the tech guys and everything else. And so we're going to incorporate that into the class. It's not just going to be a bunch of kids like, hey, you know, you get the last period of the day to get ready for your game match. So you're going to get extra practice time. You know, we're going to incorporate those things. We're going to incorporate gym time, you know, because the physical body is so important. You know, I'm a big guy now because I'm 45 and my metabolism stopped, but my mouth didn't. So I kept eating all those cheeseburgers that I did when I was in college. But, you know, incorporating physical health and stress management and everything else, because gaming can get very stressful. You know, how do you deal with loss? How do you not like reach up and grab that expensive monitor that my school just bought and throw it through the wall? And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? You know? And so incorporating that into my esports program is more than just, hey, these kids are playing games. Hey, these kids have a potential career. You know, doing something like you're doing, Kyle, is a great opportunity for these kids. Is something that, you know, we're not really pushing in high school. It's, you know, hey, go be an accountant. Hey, go be an electrical engineer or a nurse or a doctor. But esports was a $1.1 billion industry in 2019, making it larger than the NBA. Why can't we find careers for these students who can follow their passion?
Totally agree. It's those careers are kind of where my passions are, right? It's like play the games, right? Be competitive, all that kind of stuff. Eventually, like, you know, you're not going to make it pro, right? The chance of making it pro, even if you do only for a couple of years, because, you know, most esports pros age out in about 3 or 4 years anyways. But how do you take that passion and apply it constructively to that, like those very just on the border around the actual play, the game designers, the marketers, the video editors, right? Everything you ever see, like whether it's in the game or out to the game or on Twitter or social media, it's usually a video, right? Someone's editing that, continuously being creative with that and making everything just look cool, plain and simple. But that's a very valuable skill, and there's a ton others. So I'm super excited to see that, you know, there's programs like yours that are already, you know, doing that and beginning to incorporate that. But kind of looking towards the future as my last question here before we run out of time, is what's your plan for the future of the esports program at Willow Canyon? You know, so let's say 2 or 3 years down the line, you know, what do you hope to accomplish in that time, and where do you hope to sit, you know, about 3 years from now, to really provide all these opportunities that we've been talking about as you continue to grow from the beginning stages from last year?
Yeah, sure. So when we started the program, we had 7 gaming computers because, you know, it was middle of the year, so budgets aren't there. I managed to kind of sneak in 5 more over the summer. So now I'm running 12 computers. So I'm running 11 gaming machines and 1 streaming machine. So the one I'm on right now is my streaming station. And I sit in an old computer lab, so 26 by 28 foot room, right? And so my goal is to convert this into, the other teachers make fun of me, but I don't call it the esports room. I call it the esports arena.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And so the goal is to convert this into that professional space, just like football has a field, basketball has a court, baseball has those fields. And so create that space. And then looking at this space, it sits on the north end of the building, and there's a wall, and behind that wall on the south side, there's another classroom that currently sits empty. And so what I want to do is knock a hole in that wall, put a door there, and that south room now becomes my content creation station. Right? So my arena is that north side, content creation is my south side, and we're creating a kind of whole purpose. It's not just us playing video games, it's us creating those marketing opportunities, us creating content, and all those other things that go with esports besides just playing the game, right? That's my 5-year plan. So I've been in my first year. The first year is get the gaming going. You know, we've been successful. There's some great competition here in Arizona. So I don't think we're going to take state, even though my principal is really pushing for it. I don't think we're going to take state. We lost a couple players last year. But my goal is to be a top 20 team in the state, and to be consistently in that top 20, top 10. To be the name. You know, it's like, oh, Willow's coming, you know, that's going to be a great competition. But at the same time, like, hey, Willow Canyon mentions us on Twitter. I'm already starting to get that. Because, you know, that hype is just as important. And so, like, I'll tag teams. We played a Colorado team last week, and I tagged the team, and the coach was laughing with me because I got to know him because of a coach's rival series over the summer. He said, yeah, my principal came running in my classroom with his phone, and he was like, have you seen this? This school's tagging us. That's so cool. And I want that kind of excitement for the program, that when somebody hears Willow Canyon, it's like, that's a good school. That's where I want to be. So, and just because we're like the whole deal.
Absolutely. And really that I can see that comprehensive model, which is so important because like you said, we've been saying the entire time, all those opportunities, you know, all the students deserve to have those opportunities and have that platform to pursue them. Right. And that's incredible to see. And, you know, hopefully you are that top 10 team year in and year out, 3 years from now. And I'm sure, you know, with the basis you already have, that is attainable pretty easily, to say the least. But we are out of time. Thank you so much for joining me on Spincast today, John. Real quick, if you will, let us know what that Twitter handle is. You know, plug yourself, plug the program. Tell us where we can find you on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, anywhere that you want to plug.
Shoot, I'm a Twitter newbie, so let me look it up real fast. Our Twitter handle is at WCHS_esports. We don't have Facebook, Instagram, but we do have a Twitch. That Twitch is twitch.tv/Willow_Canyon_esports. And on YouTube, we are Willow Canyon Esports.
Awesome. Great to hear. Everyone out there, if you want to check them out, it'll be in the description below. So go ahead and scroll down and click those links to check out even more of all the content they have there. But thank you again, John. To our viewers and listeners, thank you for staying the entire time. Stay healthy and stay happy out there. COVID's still a thing. Take care of yourself, take care of your loved ones, and ultimately, stay plugged in.